G'day guys, it's Jake here. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Please do your own research when it comes to investing. Please sure check out my links below, including exchanges I use and social media content that I post. Alright, let's go. So the topic for this video, we're going over the 18.6 year real estate cycle. I did do a video about this previously, and I want to touch up again on it and go over some tail signs of why I think it could be peaking in 2026, 2025, 2026, according to this chart here. And, it goes over, every 18.6 years approximately when the real estate has its low to high prices. And obviously it's 14 years up and 4 years down. Okay, so you can see on this chart here that we have the first 7 years, from the very bottom of the market after the collapse and, downward price action on the houses have gone down to its lowest point. And so 7 years starting from then to the mid-cycle slowdown, which is these years, 61, 81, 2001, and 2020, right? So approximately that's every 20 odd years, but it's in the ballpark of 18.6 years, 19 years roughly, okay? And the bottoms were 55, 75, 1993, 2011. They had that mid-cycle slowdown, which is usually a recession, okay? So it did have that happen in 2020 as well. And we had a recession here in 2000. Early 80s we had a recession, and early 60s we had a recession. So that did line up with the cycle. And then eventually we had another dip here, okay? That was 2022. We had another downward move. Sometimes it has a secondary slowdown. But anyway, so not once or twice. Happened twice, and then it went up again, okay? Now we're sort of in the very end of this. So we see where this line goes from, basically a 45-degree angle to a really sharp angle. We're about here in the cycle, 2024, okay? And the next 7 years will be the peak, which is 2025, 2026, okay? Roughly in this vicinity, okay? I do see 2026 being a very, very likely outcome, given that, it was basically 2007. It was 19 years from that point, okay? So roughly in line. And we had 1989 before that, 18 years and 17 years or so. It was probably, I think it was a bit earlier than 1922, but that's just what's got on this chart here. The 17 years before that was the top, okay, in real estate prices before the inevitable collapse and crash in the prices, of course. So that's what happened there. And we had the bottoms, 75, which I showed you here, 93, 2010, or 11 or so. And then coming up will be a bottom in 2029 and 2030 for the real estate market. And the stock markets do follow along with this pretty closely too. So they're all intertwined. That is the diagram, and that is the cusp of what we're talking about. So that is the real estate cycle in a nutshell. So the next one is real estate activity. This is a very, very old chart. It goes back a long, long way, and it measures the activity of real estate. That's pretty well it, And there's these peaks, okay? And they were missing, so I did write them in. I did write them in to match up, okay, where we are. So they were missing. These ones in red I did type in. And this blue is updated for the current portion where we are, except for here, of course, it's a bit outdated. Nevertheless, it did go lower and then did recover. So we are coming up towards the peak, current cycle. But 1798 was the top, and we went down, okay, into 1805 or so, and then boom, we shot back up. 1818 to the next peak, okay, and then we had a crash in prices, and then bottomed out in the 1820s, mid-20s, and then 1836 was the top, went down in the 1840s, 1854 was the top, so See, it's 18 years, roughly. That's about 20 years, but 18. And then 1869 was about 15 years, so a bit of a deviation there. All right, so very much a bit smaller. And then we had a peak, and then we crash, and then we went back up. In 1888, so this was 19 years later. Okay, so more in line with these other ones. This one was a bit of an outlier. Peaked a bit sooner. And then at 1908, which is 20 odd years after that, and a peak in 1926. I'll skip these bottoms, early 30s there. And then late 40s, right, so 18 years or so. And then, 20 odd years, I'd say, more than 20 years. And then 1972, and there was a bit of a discrepancy, big difference between these years, okay? This is basically 24 years or so later, I believe it was, so a bit of a lag there. The reason being there was a world war, okay, between after this period, late 30s, the mid 40s, and delayed the real estate cycle. This was interrupted by that war, and it did get delayed here. So now that's we have a peak again, 1972, 1980, it's mid-cycle slowdown, and then another peak in 1989, right? So these are mid-cycle slowdowns, and then a crash here, and then we had 2000 mid-cycle slowdown, 2007 top, then a crash at the end of that cycle, and now we're coming up from 2011 to now, which is basically it's getting right to the end of the cycle, okay, according to this history, real estate activity. And we have the history of the tallest skyscrapers now. This is what ties in with the cycle. What we see at the winner's curse phase of the cycle, right at the end there, is we see an announcement of the tallest building comes out. It doesn't have to be necessarily completed, but it's the announcement of it getting constructed. Okay, so under construction is what you'll hear in the news in the next coming year or so. All right, so that is very important to note. And we go history. We had the Singer Building at Philadelphia City Hall around the same time. That was completed in 1908, right? But the announcement of it was in 1908. The Singer Building. So I'm going back this far. I can go back to the 800s, but I can go back to these periods as well. We'll start at the 1800s, all right? So we had one here. This building here was the tallest in the world. 1857 it was built. I'll go back to the chart. And it was built then, but the announcement would have been sooner than that. And 1854 would have been around that where it got announced. And the market topped. Okay, so that was that one. And the next period, we got 1870 now, which is the Equitable Life Building. It's built in 1870. Okay, so not long after this peak here in 1869, so the peak there, and we had the next world's tallest building. Okay, 1870, and then we have 1888 is the next period. Okay, so we had some other buildings in between. So what it doesn't have to be exact. Okay, these buildings can be built in between the cycles. Okay, in the middle of the cycle. So we do the middle cycle, largest, tallest buildings. And then at the end of this cycle, we had the Lancashire Insurance Building, built in 1890, and the Manhattan Building in Chicago, and also the Monadnock Building. All right, so these are all got built in the 1890 period, 1891, and that was around the top, okay, or just after it. All right, in real estate activity. So then again, it would have been announced around this time and then got built slightly after that. Okay, so they've had these three periods we just talked about, and then 1908. So let's go to the next set of years. So we have 1908 and 1909. So we had these two buildings, the Philadelphia City Hall, which is this one. Okay, nice, beautiful building, and the Singer Building in New York City. And that was, I just mentioned this period here, at the top of the real estate cycle. And it's got built. And then we have 1926 now. Okay, so this was a bit delayed. Okay, the real estate market did top in 26, but the stock market topped in 29. They took a few years later, and that was due to low interest rates. And there's a lot more speculation back then, and the economy was actually holding up. The real estate market, for some reason, did top out a little bit sooner, and the stock markets kept going on and on and on. Okay, and nevertheless, that happened, and we had the Chrysler Building, all right, and the Empire State Building being announced at the end of that late 20s and got built in 31, and then 31 Empire State Building. Okay, it was called the Empty State Building because no one really rocked up. It was a depression back then, and it was quite horrible, the impact of it, people. And it was an empty building once it was completed because no one had nothing to do with it. It wasn't any impressive to people because they just want to get their lives back on track, and they were, nevertheless, in bad financial shape back then. And had these ones were completed, all right, slightly after the peak, and did have land values peak a bit sooner, and then they did decline slowly, and then 930, 31, and then subsequent the crash of the stock market, and then these buildings were announced just around that time. Okay, roughly. Now the next period we have is 1948 or so. Now, there wasn't much data here, and there wasn't a world's tallest building around this time. As you can see, there was nothing in this period because there was a world war just in the mid-40s, late 30s, and there was nothing going on after that. But we did have another peak in 1972, okay, notably. And we go to here, and you can see that we had the World Trade Center. The Twin Towers, as we all know, 9/11 was completed in 1973. It started in 1971. So that was the world's tallest building at 417 metres there. And go back, that was around the peak, the real estate cycle. Okay. The announcement of that, and the completion was slightly when it declined. And then we had the late 80s. And guess what? Nothing happened in the late 80s. So there was no skyscraper there. Okay. So that was an outlier, that one there. And okay, the mid-90s. Okay, so this was around the mid-cycle. We had the Petronas Towers get completed, and that was in Kuala Lumpur, okay, in Malaysia. That's the city in Malaysia. And that was mid-cycle. And then we had 2004, 2010 with the Thai Pai 101. And by the end, 2010, this 2009-8 cycle, essentially, it was announced a little bit before. Okay, so it was announced in 2008. This was getting built. Okay, and 2009 and 2010 it was completed. Okay, so a little bit announced beforehand, and the Burj Khalifa, as you all know, love, was done. And it's currently the world's tallest building. I go back to this, and that was the top. It's just slightly before, but it was an announcement roughly around that time. It's not exact. But if you pull up some news headlines, you might be able to find it. But it was announced roughly in this late in the real estate cycle, and then completed in 2010 around the bottom, okay, of this market. All right. And so these are the tallest buildings in the world, going back to the real estate cycle. As far as the 1850s, I couldn't get back to the early 1800s because there wasn't really much on my Wikipedia there that explains it. But going from the 1850s to now, and what we're seeing is it has played out pretty well for all these buildings coinciding with the real estate cycle. Now, we'll get to where we are currently. And I just saw this the other day. It was yesterday. Just got posted yesterday. Very, very interesting that we are getting the world's tallest building again coming out. Okay, the announcement hasn't been made. It's kept under wraps, but you'll hear some of the news in the next year or so. We're really starting to ramp up and people will start talking about it. But as of now, this is the first time I've ever heard of it. Never seen it on the news, seen anyone else talk about it. So this is a first, which is quite staggering that this is in Saudi Arabia as well. So they've got the Burj Khalifa, okay, and this one here is called the Jeddah Tower, and it's set to become the world's tallest building, okay, and and a $1.9 billion deal to build this thing. And it's planned to stand 3,280 feet tall, surpassing the 2,717 feet Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So this is a picture of it. This is a video just going in a zoomed up version. But it's going to be bigger, taller, and better, as this person has said, Mr. Nice, than the Burj Khalifa. So, yeah, this will be the world's tallest building. And the announcement, you'll hear it around the peak of the real estate cycle, which is roughly next year to the 2026. And construction's already been underway. And, yeah, it's happening. So, quite fascinating stuff that it's happening again, it's a direct repeat of what we've seen in history. So, history repeats. And I'll show you a video of it. So, this might be a little bit blurry. We have 480p. That's what we're stuck with. Okay, so here is the video. So yeah, that's quite interesting. That's just a nice visual for you to see what it is. And yeah, Phil Anderson, Akhil Patel, Jason Bazzino, all these people. Yeah, they're all around it, and especially Phil and Akhil. I follow those two, and they're sort of spearheading this 8.6 year real estate cycle discovery and developments and news in relation to it to keep you up to date. And I'm following on Twitter to get understanding of where we are, and we're getting very, very close to the end as this announcement just puts an extra layer of confluence top, which is very, very fascinating to see. So yeah, another world's tallest building is coming out in this real estate cycle. All right, and we'll finish up on the charts. So the stock market now, and I'll go on the daily, the futures, and we look a bit bearish, down 0.3%. Okay, on the S&P futures, and the Nasdaq futures are down 0.4%, slightly more. But we are sort of dropping sideways, and nothing really happening here. We do have a notable gap here, okay, which is prominent. We must look out for, and we could fill this gap before going higher. All right, and then continuing uptrend into the late stages of this business cycle or real estate cycle. And if you want to see where the retracement could be, if you mark from the bottom to the top, and a retracement would be roughly around the 55, 50 level in that roundabout area. You take these rough areas here, these peaks, right? These reaction areas, and it's around the 6.8, okay, 55.60 before we continue the up move, all right? So this is continuing to be bullish going to 2026, right? But any pullbacks you get, you want to take advantage of them and use other indicators to confirm the pullbacks are happening and they're valid, along with Fibonacci's and other tools you got to measure where we are. But that is what I'm seeing. And I will check the volume profile for this one as well. Seeing where we are. Here we are here. And I'll mark significant area here. Okay, so here's some volume profile action for the S&P futures. And you can see we do have some peaks around the 6.8 area, okay. Very notably, we have a peak here. All right, peak volume, which is just around the gap, not far off it, at 56.50, then 5600, and then 55.80, and then 55.60, okay. This is major peak, and then, yeah, 55.20 or 55, we're in that roundabout area. Just in this area here is a nice cluster of volume, which is interest where the buyers could step in. The lower end of this peak is around 5,500, as you can see there. That would be, just above the 786. All right, and the support level here, as you can see, this cluster here. All right, rejection here. We could come back down to here as well. This is another level that is a confluence from the peak in volume. So just watch out for that area before another shoot up higher. I do see pullback and then continuation. S&P, and pretty similar to NASDAQ. So getting down in the pre-markets, but we could see a pullback, something similar if you get from the Fibonacci to the top. Okay, 618 is around here. If you pull up a anchored volume profile from these lows here, okay, and you get an understanding that we'll sort of see where the wicks are, and this is a nice volume shelf here, coincide with that, and we are another peak here, which is where we're currently sitting, price, okay, just above it, okay, at 20,170, and around the 20k level is a notable peak there, of course. And if you go to 618, which is a very common retracement level, as we do have a bulk of volume starting at 618, okay, which you can see there, and then going down a bit lower to the 18.6 level, which is right down the bottom, down here, which would be a pretty deep pullback, deeper than I expect. I do see it coming around here. It's higher peak shelf. If it doesn't get that low, then this peak area is of interest as well. Okay, 382 to the 0.5, just below it. Okay, just around here at 19,400. So somewhere a pullback around here could be viable at 0.5 and a continuation, or a pullback to 618, which is the top of this volume shelf, and then continuation to the upside going into 2025 and 2026 eventually. So that is what I'm seeing on the futures market. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Could go higher. This could be the low. These clusters here could be the low, and then we could come back down, and then could boom up from there. To wait and see. Anything could play out. Just got to take what the market gives you. But that is the stock market playing out at the moment. And yeah, we're just hovering around this level of volume. Okay, so that is that. And then we go back to Bitcoin again. And Bitcoin did have a nasty wick the other day. So this is a pretty, I won't draw it there. You'll see the wick, pretty bad. This one here. And we're starting to struggle here. Got another wick candle. And want to go lower and retest the 61k level again. All right. If you do come back down here, I think it's trouble for the crypto market, and I don't see it holding much longer before heading back down to 50k. Okay, and that's where I do see it by the end of the year. I did say 40k, but that's now I'm looking at the time frame, seeing it's probably too bearish. Seeing the 40s, be lucky if you get that. That'd be God sent. That'd be the opportunity of a lifetime. If you do go into the 40s, but I do see early 50s being the bottom, potentially forever for Bitcoin. It'll be the last time to get down these levels until the next bear market, that we could get to close to these levels, but not quite. I did mention this in the previous video, the Bitcoin peak predictions, also cycle bottom predictions, saying that 60k would be the bottom roughly for 2026-ish later that year, and the tops are around 200k. But yeah, if you want to get around these prices, anywhere from 60 to 50, you're not doing too bad when the cycle peak arrives in late 2025. So either level. I do see 50k being quite strong, holding up, bring up an anchored volume profile from the spot ETF just before it, and see obviously there's a cluster there, the 40 levels. Okay, there's a big gap in between, but there is a little bit of a shelf here, and it's small. All right, but now this lines up the 50k level, and not a lot of volume to support it, but yeah, it does come back down here. It does have a bit of volume supporting it, and it's not strong, but it's there. Okay, we have a lot of volume up above it, and some volume here to support at 61k, and then it gets lower and lower as the price goes down, and then we have an area here, and then a big gap sort of thing, and then the volume picks back up as we get to this cluster here, which is at the 40s, and that'll be a lifetime buying opportunity. Okay, if it does get down there, but we're not far off, less than a year away from the peak. So any pullbacks you get, is take advantage. Not financial advice, of course, but have a strategy in place. And for me, it's the risk metric. And I want to see this indicator get to 30 and below. It's at 38 at the moment, which coincides with early 60s, of course, on this timetable chart, as you can see. And if I get to 30, it's around 54K. So it wouldn't have to get down to here. It'd be slightly above, around here, right? This level here, roughly. And that's when I'll start to accumulate altcoins around this level. But preferably down to support level would be nice. And getting below 30 risk will be a absolute steal and bargain, in my opinion, to where we're going for the end of cycle top for Bitcoin. Okay. I'll just show you the MACD as well. MACD indicator. And on the daily, we're sort of overbought at the moment. So it's starting to tick over and tick down as price goes down with it. Looking quite weak on the daily time frame. And if you can see, every time we come up to here, we've had a top there. I've had a top here. Okay, and we've gone down, lower, MACD. And up here, there was a top, as you can see here, and it went down. Right, obviously. So let's draw it with an arrow. Down after that. And down after that. And then down after the MACD. So each MACD topping was top for Bitcoin. And there was one here. It was a false top. Okay. As you can see here. But in this cluster here, that was a false. But then we had the secondary top, and that was the top. And top. And we're coming up to it again. And this could be a short-term top. And we had a cross before we get this correction down on this arrow, as I've just drawn down here. Potentially 50K levels, okay? And that'd be absolute amazing buying opportunity if you can snag that level. If you want to get a bit more technical, the 3-day time frame, which you can see that it's still looking bullish on the 3-day, but it is bearish on the daily, okay? It's getting lower and lower and lower. If you go on the weekly time frame now, and the weekly time frame is all the way down here, so it's actually looking bullish on the weekly. Because we had very, very low levels, okay? Low levels down here, near the lows of Bitcoin in 2022. But it can go lower, okay? This can go higher as this goes lower, price goes lower. So the oscillator can divert from price. And it was a low here in mid-2021, and it went shot up higher. We had a low down here in March, and it actually it pumped for a little bit, and then it dropped. So it's not perfect in the weekly, but it's now that's a stronger time frame than the daily and the 3-day time frame. And yeah, we are at low levels at the current stage of time on the weekly time frame. So, but yeah, you go back to the daily now, and you can see it could be a short-term top for rolling back over, and yeah, continuing back to the upside. So that is it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just going over the 18.6 year real estate cycle, charting it. I did in the other video showing a nice diagram of previous cycles where the recovery to the mid-cycle slowdown and mid-cycle session to the peak and the winner's curse and then a crash, okay, and the 4-year downturn. So the 14 years up, 4 years down on average. And I showed you on the real estate activity chart how it plays out. Pretty good. There was interruption in the World War period, World War II. There was a delayed response there, so it was thrown off by a world war, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens. And besides that, it has played out to a T. So yeah, very good prediction where real estate values will go, and also the stock market and crypto market, as it's all speculative assets. And people speculate on land at the top of the cycle, and nevertheless, it'll be stocks, it'll be crypto, it'll be every other asset too. So art collections and watches and whatever else you can think of. It'll be record sales for this, record sales for that. And also showed you the world's tallest buildings and how they occur at the peaks of the real estate cycle, going into the troughs, the bottoms when they get built. Okay, so they do get built at the troughs and they get announced at the top. If you want to look more into that, you can do some more research on it yourself, but that's what generally occurs at these points in the cycle. And we have the Burj Khalifa, which is the current world's tallest building. And there is one getting built right now called the Jeddah Tower in Dubai as well. And that will overtake the Burj Khalifa, and it'll be about a kilometre high. So huge tower, and they'll be completed, I don't know when, probably sometime in the later stages of this decade. But nevertheless, it'll get announced very, very soon. A year's time or 2 years' time, and that'll be the top this cycle as well. And I showed you some charts of the S&P minis and NASDAQ, where I see it going, and just short-term moves, and the Bitcoin price as we see it. And the inevitable pullback, I reckon we're going to pull back. As pullback comes, this will be the current prices is as low as you want to get them, okay? So it's not much time left. And it's completely bullish next year. So get ready and get looking at projects on your watch list, old coins you want to buy, old stocks, whatever else. Make sure you do some research, get people prepared for the upcoming boom that we're going to get next year, going to the 2026 peak, which would be quite exciting. And yeah, be great, make a lot of money, and then make sure you get out, okay? So if you enjoyed this video, please smash the like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to stay updated. Be sure to check out the links below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.